Could an elite prospect visit Louisville soon?
You are Locked On Louisville, your daily podcast on the Louisville Cardinals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Card Nation, what's going on, everyone? Welcome into this late Wednesday edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. I'm your host, Dalton Pence. This is my fifth year covering the University of Louisville, third year hosting this show, and I want to take the time, as always, to thank you all for making us your first listen of the day. Just a reminder, Locked On Louisville, free and available on all streaming services 5 days a week, your team every day. Now, today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off of your first year. A recent report from Jody Demling suggests that five-star forward Anthony Thompson could be looking to visit Louisville soon. We will react to that news. We will discuss the 4 new 2026 football commitments that Jeff Brohm and company have received over the past couple of days. And then we will recap the magical Final Four run for the Louisville baseball team as their season ended earlier on Wednesday. But we begin with men's basketball, and there are a lot of moving pieces in the recruiting realm right now. It has become overwhelming because of the amount of players that Louisville is involved with at the moment. That's why, I mentioned that we are going to follow the visits. Who is wanting to visit? Who's going to visit? Who has, already visited? Who is cutting their list significantly? And Anthony Thompson, a five-star forward, cut his list to 14 in late April, in which Louisville was included in that list. But top 14, that's so many teams to talk about. We have to wait for a list to get cut significantly further down than that. And there are rumors out there that Thompson could be cutting his list further down in the next couple of weeks. But an article from Jody Demling of Cardinal Authority, which is the Louisville 247sports.com site, an article titled "Five-Star Forward Looking to Make a Visit to Louisville." Demling highlights that elite wing Anthony Thompson is wanting to visit Louisville. Now, the specifics on when that visit will come, there's not really a timeline on that, but he does mention that Thompson paid attention to year one under Pat Kelsey, and he thinks that year two is going to be really good for the Cardinals program. There are a bunch of teams that he's considering, some top teams like Kansas, Kentucky, Michigan, North Carolina, you name it. And Demling mentions that he hopes to cut his list to 8 or 10 in the next couple of weeks. And a decision would likely come close to the start of his senior season, which would be October or November, you would believe. Now, I don't want to take a lot of thunder from Jody's article because he does great work, but that's sort of the cliff notes from it and the things that you need to know. Now, I will start out by saying that if you gave me the opportunity to decide who the top 5 prospects that Louisville should prioritize are, I would probably say, and in no order, Tyron Stokes, Dylan Mingo, Talon Kinney, Deron Rippey Jr., and Anthony Thompson. Like, I am a full believer in this kid's potential. 6'7", 185 pounds, plays for Western Reserve Academy in Hudson, Ohio. According to 247sports.com, he is the 9th best prospect in the class, 3rd best small forward, and number 1 player in the state of Ohio. And when you watch this guy on film, I mean, there's no confusion. There's no wondering, well, how is this guy a top 10 pick? After about 2 to 3 clips, you're like, or I'm sorry, not top 10 pick, top 10 recruit. After 2 to 3 clips, you're like, okay, I'm sold. Currently listed at 6'7". Jody, I think, listed him as 6'9". I wonder what the actual height is there, but 7'2" wingspan, and he uses that to his advantage. If you maybe give you like a couple words that describe his game, it comes down to big-time shot maker, because that's what Anthony Thompson is. There aren't many shots in the half court that he cannot make. He's a lefty with a solid, shooting form. Nothing wrong mechanically there. And I don't know what it is about the Cardinals recruiting lefties this cycle, but I'm okay with that. I mean, my former favorite player used to be James Harden, huge Houston Rockets fan. So I'm used to seeing lefties light it up all over the half court. And with Thompson, 6'7", 7'2" wingspan, he has a really high release point on that jump shot, which allows him in turn to create a ton of offense, whether it's off the dribble, catch and shoot. When he releases a shot, good luck trying to defend it. Good luck trying to alter it, because, I mean, he is extremely good with his handles and creating off the dribble. He's got that high arcing release. Really challenging to get a hand up and defend that. Just overall, really advanced offensive arsenal. What I wanted to see this spring/summer from Thompson was his ability to do two things. Number one, get to the paint and finish through contact. And according to some reports out there from, I think there was one from Adam Finkelstein, the director of scouting for 24/7 Sports, who said he's doing pretty solid in that category. He also highlighted something else that I wanted to see, and that is how well he uses his offhand, that right hand. And apparently he's using the right hand proficiently as well, of getting to the basket, finishing through contact. I also think it's pretty interesting that as advanced of an offensive game that he has, he doesn't turn 17 until August, so still fairly young in the grand scheme. He will be 18 really when he's set to step foot on a college campus. So there's a ton of potential there. You would, of course, even though he's 185 pounds, you want him to, embrace the physicality that you're likely going to see at the next level. And I mean, it's just, as he continues to grow into the frame, the potential is just off the charts. But it's not one of those situations to where the potential is something that might not be able to be reached early on. Like, I think that he's going to be a high floor level guy because of the shot making potential. Yes, I mean, who knows? He might not hit that full ceiling until he gets to the NBA a couple of years into his pro career. But let's be honest, how many times do players hit their full ceiling in college, especially if they're only playing 1 or 2 seasons? So in terms of the 2026 class, Anthony Thompson would be one of my top 5 priorities in the class, because there aren't many players that can make the shots that he can make, being a volume scorer, being 6'7". I know that the Cardinals are involved with a good amount of elite level guards. Even if you prioritize Tyron Stokes and Anthony Thompson, I feel like they play 2 different roles to where they can coexist on the court at the same time. And that would be a complete matchup nightmare for the opponent. So I am keeping close tabs on this recruitment. I want to see who he includes in that list cut, when that list cut comes, how many teams are in the list cut, when he schedules that visit to Louisville, and much more. But guys, this guy is an absolute hooper, and the Cardinals would be really lucky to be seriously involved in this recruitment. But we're going to stay in the recruiting world, but just switch sports. We're going to football, where Jeff Brohm and company, even though you see him on TV in Omaha watching the Cardinals in the College World Series, they've been busy on the recruiting front. 4 new commitments over the past week. We'll discuss when we come back on this Wednesday edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. Card Nation, today's episode of the show is brought to you by Monarch Money. If you're like me and you check your bank account sometimes and you wonder where all your money went, whether it's dining out, online shopping, you name it. I feel like it's just so easy to lose track. And that's where Monarch Money needs to come into play, because when I made it my personal CFO that gives me full visibility and control over my finances, it has become a complete game changer. It's not just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center where you can track all your accounts, investment, spending in one place. So you just stop managing your money and start building your wealth. Truthfully, when I started using Monarch Money a couple months ago, I realized just how much I was spending on eating fast food. And now I budget smarter and save more. And actually, it helps me eat healthier too. So I get the best of both worlds. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com with the code LOCKEDONCollege for half off of your first year. As always, want to take the time to thank you all for making us your first listen of the day throughout this off-season month of June. I hope everyone is having a great month, and thank you all for continuing to share, subscribe, interact with the socials, and drop some comments to get your thoughts in on the various topics that we discuss. But we're staying with recruiting, just going over to football, where over the past week, the Cardinals have picked up 4 football commitments. Now, I know what you're thinking. I just had a segment last episode that talked about how it's okay in the current state of football recruiting across the collegiate landscape to not really become so invested in following recruiting until you get closer to signing day. And that's what I want to preface what we're about to talk about with, because yes, the Cardinals are getting 4 new commitments, but they just lost a couple. One that committed 2 weeks before he decommitted. Will all 4 of these players be Louisville Cardinals next season? Next season? Maybe. I don't know. So, actually not next season. I'm sorry. The 2026 season. But you just have to be honest and understanding that, yes, you can follow high school recruiting, but just understand that there's so many different moving parts. But nonetheless, don't let me keep ranting. Let's talk about the 4 commitments. And 3 of those commitments are from the state of Georgia. And the one that's not is pretty close to the state of Georgia. That is Charlie Edgeworth, 3-star offensive tackle prospect, 6'7", 325 pounds, out of Chattanooga. Plays for Baylor School, ranked as the 1,192nd player in the class. And if you remember, Baylor School is the high school of current Louisville standout quarterback commit Briggs Cherry. So I like that the Cardinals are bringing in a lineman that he's familiar with. Now, despite not being extremely highly ranked, he still has some pretty decent offers out there. You look at Kentucky, there's Florida, there is Syracuse. And for a guy ranked outside the top 1,000, he's got some pretty compelling offers out there. So 6'7" moves really well for his size. Interested to see if he would be a left or right tackle for the Cardinals. But I like that, you're also doing a good amount of work to try to make sure you keep Briggs Cherry committed. So that's pretty awesome as well. But now we get into discussing the Georgia commitments. Cornerback Chris Brunson from Snellville, Georgia, 6'2" cornerback, ranked just inside the top 1,500. Doesn't really have a ton of Power 5 offers at the moment. He has an offer from Virginia. He has an offer from Mississippi State, it looks like he's potentially visiting this weekend. Wake Forest and Virginia Tech also giving those offers out to him as well. 41 tackles as a junior, 10 passes broken up, and a forced fumble. 6'2" kind of fits that mold that the Cardinals are going after with the larger cornerback. And I like his potential in man-to-man, does a good job of high-pointing the football, in pursuit, getting to the ball handler in space and run defense. And he just feels like he has the prototypical build of a cornerback that Jeff Brohm Ron English and Mark Hagan are looking for. I truthfully think he's better than the 1,413th best prospect. I think that he could be a player that rises in the rankings, but I really like this commitment for the Cardinals. Crew Mold, I think it's Moledor, Moledor, 6'3" interior offensive lineman, weighs 280 pounds from Gainesville, Georgia, 1,386th best prospect. At this moment, the Louisville Cardinals are his only listed Power 4 offer. So I'm not sure. Of course, I'm not disagreeing with Jeff Brohm or Coach Summers on. I'm sorry, Coach Owens, not Coach Summers. Coach Summers was was an old offensive line coach. Sorry, that's not the right coach. But Coach Owens, Coach Brohm, of course, they likely see something with Crew Moldor, and I mean, I wonder, in parts of Georgia where talent is the best. Of course, the Metro Atlanta area, north of Atlanta in the Marietta, Cartersville, that area. But I do wonder how the level of competition is in Gainesville. I'm not really an expert in that regard, but there's sort of a theme here that the Cardinals are going after those lower ranked players and banking on the potential. The other offensive lineman is from Valdosta, Georgia, comes from the same high school program that TJ Quinn came from. 6'5", 299 pounds, just ranked inside of the top 1,000. Has a Kentucky and an Arkansas offer, South Florida as well, Florida State, Miami, Ole Miss, Pittsburgh, Virginia Tech, West Virginia. So I am notorious for admitting that rankings don't really matter as much to me as offers do, because rankings can get political, guys. I mean, we know that. We had Brian Smith, the Locked On Podcast Network recruiting analyst, on the show multiple times over the past 3 years, and I would probably bet to say that more than once he mentioned on air that, I mean, there is a level of politics to these rankings. Where guys commit, getting offers, certain programs. It's just, and look, I'm not sitting here on a soapbox suggesting that the rankings are flawed. Everything is just backwards. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that sometimes the offer sheets are better than the ranking suggests. But with these 4 prospects, it's clear to me that, the Cardinals are once again sort of fitting in with that MO of the past classes, that they're going out and getting players that at the moment are either not highly recruited in the Power 4 ranks, they're late bloomers, they're being overlooked, they're in talent-rich areas that, like I said, just being overlooked, and they're banking on the potential, they're banking on the scouting, and that's how they're trying to build the class. Now, currently, the Cardinals have the 18 best class. I'm sorry, the 18 recruits in the class, 25th best class. And that ranking took a big hit when they lost Cavante Huggin, when they lost Josiah Hope. So I know that those that follow high school recruiting for Louisville and they are in the mindset, or they subscribe to the mentality that Louisville should recruit the high school ranks better, like these 4 commitments are likely not going to impress you just because of the rankings. A lot of people just star chase, and there's some truth to that, but it doesn't tell the full tale. I'm interested to see, with 18 commitments in the fold, how many more commitments are the Cardinals going to take in the high school class? How does the potential house settlement that the transfer portal buyouts could factor into the revenue sharing cap? How does that affect high school recruiting? Something to pay attention to moving forward. But when we come back, we're going to recap this magical run from Dan McDonnell's Louisville baseball team as their season ended earlier on Wednesday. Card Nation, we just have a couple more episodes for the month of June. Don't forget, obviously, it's an off-season month with 12 episodes instead of 19. That comes out to roughly 3 episodes a week. This is episode number 8. On the show tomorrow or Friday, there's going to be some more basketball recruiting talk, but this is your time to get any thoughts or segment ideas / recommendations for me to talk about before we get into full-on football preview starting in July. So drop those comments in the YouTube comments below. But what a run. What a run is all I have to say. The Louisville Cardinals season came to an end on Wednesday with an 11-3 loss to the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers. They ended the season with a 42-24 record, going 15-15 in conference play, 29-8 at home, 7-12 on the road, and 6-4 in neutral sites. So it was just a magical run. Don't forget, and I don't think that many people are out here thinking this, but for me, I just can't be that mad. And I'm one of the people that I wear my heart on my sleeve. My emotions get high for sporting events. Like, I care a lot. I care a lot about this university's athletics department. And when they lost in the Final Four, and it was an ugly game, and we'll kind of recap that here in a second. But when they lost, I really wasn't all that mad. And I really wasn't all that sad either. Of course, it sucked, and you hate to fall short. But they made the Final Four, and the overwhelming emotions that I had post-game were that of appreciation and gratitude for this year's team. I mean, you put things into perspective, and you try to see the forest, above the trees, and it was not so long ago where the Cardinals lost to Bellarmine at home. Or you try to see the forest through the trees. I'm sorry, I said that statement wrong. But you lost to Bellarmine at home. You lost the last couple series of the regular season. You were a one and done in the ACC tournament. And then the team just did a complete 180. Like, you went out and you took down a solid East Tennessee State team in the opening game of the Nashville Regional. You won a nail-biter against Vanderbilt. And then you handled business against a pretty solid Wright State team to go 3-0 in the regional play. You get to the Supers and you have a statement opening win against Miami. You got punched in the mouth on that Saturday game, but you battled. You came back and you toughed out a decisive, close 3-2 victory on that Sunday to get to the World Series. And it was awesome. And a lot of people counted Louisville out. You struggled in that opening game to Oregon State. It was not ideal. A lot of things went wrong. You still had a chance to win. But what did you do? You followed that up with a huge 8th inning to take the lead over Arizona. You won that game. Oregon State, you had a 3-0 lead, 6-3 going into the 9th. You allowed Oregon State to tie the game 6-6 without getting an out. And then the next 2 batters struck out, and then a pop-up, and then Louisville ends up walking the game off to beat Oregon State. And you had a tough go on Wednesday. Pitching was an issue early on, some command issues, and before you know it, Coastal's up 6-0 in the first inning. The Cardinals try to battle back. They just didn't have a good day at the plate with runners in scoring position. And, shout out to the Chanticleers. They are a complete wagon right now. They've won 26 straight games. There's no shame. That's what I'm taking a long time to get around to, is that this season was critical for this program, and how this season ended was critical for this program, because the criticism for Dan McDonnell was growing louder and louder. The criticism for pitching coach Roger Williams was getting deafening over the past couple of years. And, it seemed like going into the tournament that, don't forget, it wasn't a for sure guarantee that they were going to make the tournament. So everyone expected them to fizzle out early, but they handled business and they got back to the Final Four. The second time that they've done that in as many trips to Omaha. And I think that it just completely changes everything about this upcoming offseason. It changes the morale. It changes the fan support. It changes the coaching decisions, because it seemed like this might have been Roger Williams last year. And he had, as loud as the criticism was, you also have to be extremely loud with the praise, because he did a really good job of managing the staff throughout this postseason run. And, there's some excitement for next year, but it also changes the recruiting. Does Louisville's budget grow? How do they change up the transfer portal recruiting? They've got some arms from, I think, some MAC schools recently over the past couple of weeks. There's some decisions from guys out there like Matt Klein, like Lucas Moore. I think Patrick Forbes is probably going to go to the MLB. He's a top 50 prospect on multiple boards, so I would be shocked to see him not go pro. There are some injuries that you have to deal with moving forward in 2026. How do you address the pitching? For the younger guys in the pitching, how do they progress? Jake Schweitzer, Ethan Eberle, Jack Brown. For the bats, are you going to bring back guys like Matt Klein and Lucas Moore and Jake Monroe? You've got Zion Rose supposed to come back. You got Tate Davis supposed to come back. Alex Alisea. You've got a good nucleus if you get some guys back. And I think that this team is going to have all the potential to continue to take the next steps forward and have a good chance to be back in Omaha next season. I'm interested to see how the Cardinals address starting pitching. Yeah, you got Ethan Eberle, but there are some questions about Parker Detmers. They mentioned on the ESPN broadcast that he underwent Tommy John surgery, which that puts his season in serious jeopardy next year. Patrick Forbes going to the league. We'll see who they end up potentially. Peter Michael, I think he has an extra year. So we'll see how things turn out. I'm interested to see how the Cardinals recruit over the next couple of weeks, next month or so. Really excited for the future moving forward. So that is going to wrap up this magical baseball tournament run. That's going to wrap up this Wednesday edition of the show. Everyone have a great day. We'll see you right back here very soon. Go Cards.